Hello, welcome to the Jam Breakdown for the January 2016 Game Jam of the Month. Zila, this is going to be part 2. So, now that we took 40 minutes to discuss a lot of basically 10 minutes worth of work, we're going to see if we can get into a little more of the code itself and cover more of the things that were done, keep us a little more focused. Probably not, but we're going to try anyways. So, we've got a working controller now, and we've got a working character, and we can move around. We can't do anything but move, but it's a good start. When I was originally trying to do this, like I said, I wanted it to be a little better and more realistic. I decided to change that later, but one of the first things I always start with is we need to get a basic level blocked out. That's really simple and nice. You can go ahead and delete. Usually I'll delete everything because I usually try to use unlit materials and things like that. This time I wanted to try my actual first stab at lighting and static lighting, which failed horribly in my opinion, but at least I tried. So I went ahead and I kept our fog and light source and things like that. So we have something to start with. So I've done a video on blocking out, and that's basically what I did here. Using our BSP boxes, I just dragged in some stuff, and I went in and started setting up a level. My idea here was a mall. So I'm thinking a few levels. We're going to use stairs to go up and down the different levels. Maybe we'll have some open areas so you can see from like the top down, or you can see from the bottom up. Maybe some exits somewhere in there. I haven't figured that one out yet. And just throw some crap on the screen and see what happens. So to start off with, you can scale the brushes. I try not to. I just try to do the X, Y's, and Z's so that way I don't get some weird snapping issues. So usually I'll try to do this something really, really silly. Maybe a 40 on the Z for a floor. And then, something like 2,000 for the floor. Now if we hit play, we're going to notice something. Well, we've got our we've got a little character here. We have no real sense of scale. That was one of the issues I ran into. So what I did was I'm using a program called Adobe Fuse CC. It used to be Mixamo Fuse, but they were bought up by Adobe, and then now we have Fuse CC, which is a great little program to create humanoid characters. And the nice thing, this is integrated with the Mixamo animation system, so we can get something in really quickly. So I created a base human, is what I did. I named him Male Type 1 because my plan was maybe we could do 2 males and 2 females. So I did a base male Type 1 right here. I built him up, threw some clothes on him, and sent him on his way. Now, when you use the Animate with Mixamo option, it's going to go ahead and use your account and upload it to Mixamo. Once we send this stuff to Mixamo, it's going to go ahead and it's going to rig it for you. So let's go and find our character. Oh, these are not my characters. Here we go. So here is our male Type 1. And he's animated and he's rigged up and he can basically do stuff. Went through. I figured, what am I going to need for this? I need an idle animation, which I don't use, but at least I need one. And I found out later it was a good thing to have it because when I did my cutscene in the beginning, I needed an idle animation. So, an idle animation, a running animation, and, try to think of what else I could use. Maybe a walking animation when they start walking. And then later on, I needed a cheering animation. And this one's pretty simple. You can just look and find stuff you want. Like here's idle, which doesn't help because I wasn't looking through the store. So let's try this again. There we go. So like idle, you can click on that. You can pull in your character, and it's going to show you exactly what it's going to look like. You can adjust things, and it's nice. It's a great way to get some animation in, and right now it is free. Once that's done, you have the option of downloading into your computer. When you export, it gives you the option of how you want to export it. One of them is FBX for Unreal Engine 4. The nice thing about that is it pulls it in and it makes it into a format that works perfect for Unreal Engine 4. So I went ahead and created that. I went ahead and organized this, male type 1, and here's what I ended up with. So we have our mesh inside of our system, which is going to be this one. So it's our little character right here, which is a skeletal mesh with a bunch of different textures assigned to it. Now you notice this one here is one of the things I talked about earlier. These are the eyelashes. And if we look closely, you can see that he has a solid eyelash. And that's because in here, I didn't set it up as transparency. And honestly, I don't really care to set it up as transparency right now. Oh, well, let's see what happens. Let's just quickly turn this to translucent and see what happens. At the worst, it works, right? Once it finishes compiling our shaders. This is one of the reasons why I didn't want to do it, because unfortunately it's going to start eating up bandwidth and CPU usage, and it might cause the recording to have issues. But we'll see. Let's see what happens when it finishes saving. Let's see if that fixes. Nope, see, that didn't fix it. And you know what? There's a fix for it. You can Google for it. This is a game jam. I don't care. I've got a character in game right now. If I was to drop him in, that works. And the nice thing is, boom, put him in there. Take my character, boom, put him in there. There we go. See? That's what I use for reference. So now we have a reference. We have a scale, basically. So we can go from here. We can drop another box in. Let's make this one a wall and use it for comparison purposes. So let's see. Our Y is our green. So let's make this one 40. Let's go ahead and make this a wall like this. And we'll go ahead and, I don't know what, maybe, what's 400 give us? If we move our character here. Well, that's not bad. That could be worse, but you know what? That's a decent start. So I went ahead and I started blocking out my level. And I'm going to pull up my map here in a bit to discuss it. But this was the basic next part. You spend hours, however long you want, blocking out a level. Now, one of the things you'll see an issue with here is, and this is one of the reasons why I usually use unlit, with lighting, you have shadows, and this is a pain in the butt to see height, and I can't see my character, and it's annoying to me. So normally I'll throw like my light on movable, and then now I still have another issue because I can't see crap, and it's an annoyance. So one thing you can do is you can use something like Supergrid, which is a fantastic marketplace add-on, which gives you a bunch of materials, or maybe you could roll your own. Tom Lumen has, let's see if we can find it. Let's see, Tom Lubin. There we go. He's a guy who's done some stuff for Epic, and he has got a fantastic website with a bunch of examples. And one of them is, let's see, tutorials, materials, and one of the mock-up material. Here we go. So this is a mock-up material. Basically, it's a material that allows one side to be one color, like these walls, and then the ground to be another color. And it gives you this grid, and it looks very nice and clean. What I did, because I've used this before, is I made a master version of this material, which is right here. And of course, this will be included in the download. But what I did was I basically copied his basics. I modified it a little bit. I gave it some parameters, and I gave it the ability to be modified and used as emissive. So that allows me to make instances like this one, which I can then take here, select it. Whoops, let's try that again. Select it and apply my material. And I now have an emissive. I'll do this one, and let's make this one that. And there we go. Now I have something where I can actually see. I can move things. I can scale things. See, I can duplicate. I can rotate. And I can start setting up a map really quickly. And I can see how this is going to look. And it's not affected by lighting and any changes like that. And if you notice, it gives it a nice clean effect because, whoops, that would be me rotating it without duplicating it. And you get a nice clean effect where everything is going to mesh. All your corners are going to sync up, all your squares are going to sync up, and it's going to look decent. It's going to look usable. That's kind of one of the keys here. I don't know why. Oh, it's my pawn. Let's get rid of him for now. And you set yourself up. Maybe take this. Here's our default floor. We drag this up a little bit. These aren't high enough, so maybe we'll make this, we'll do this. And the whole point of this first part, like I've covered in another video, is you're just blocking out your level. Let's see, this is going to be on the Y, so, whoops, not our Y, wrong one. I rotated, that's always fun, because things just start, there we go. So, see, we start that. We'll go here. We'll do that. Let's see, our floor's here. We can't really see, so we'll move this over. And here we go. We have a little room. We have a little room to start with, and we have our little guy for reference. We can know if it's too high or too low. And then we can start setting up distances. Our floor here is going to be at -10. Let's put this to 0. Let's take our character and drop it back to the floor like that. Let's say our ceiling is going to be at 350. How's that going to look? It might be a little too small, maybe 400. And then you just play and you adjust and you start iterating over and over using BSP blocks. Again, I've got a video on BSP. We'll slap this here. We'll throw it on the ground. We'll put it here. We'll turn this to subtractive. We'll go ahead and select this one again. We'll go ahead and give it the blue material so at least matches. And we have a door. We can move our character over here. We can see if it's big enough. No, maybe we want taller. So maybe we're going to want our subtractive blocks to be 250 on the height. Drag this back out. Drop it back to the floor. Pull it back through as an erasement. And there we go. There's our height. Is this going to be a good enough width? We won't know until we get our animation in. Here. Set up our animation here. There we go. So when the guy's in the middle, there we go. We got a good little door. And we can copy and paste and copy and paste. And boom, we get ourselves a map. This is our test map, which is good for testing things. We'll come back in. We'll test out our animation, test out our user interface, test out damage on our characters without having to iterate through a whole level phase. We just start dropping stuff into here to test. So right now, for example, I would have started up a new map, which I did, and I called it my mall map. And I iterated through my map. So this is my end result for my mall map right here. And this is something old that doesn't even need to be in there anymore. So this is my mall map. It is ugly. This was not optimized in any way. This is not the appropriate way to do a final map in a game. This was something that was done, iterated with over time. And when it got to the point where I was like, it works, that was it. It's a game jam. Let's get crap done. This whole game, start to finish, was done in 2 10-hour chunks on a Friday and a Saturday. Basically 10-hour chunks. Basically when my wife and kids were not harassing me. I probably spent, I want to guess maybe 25 hours total on the entire game, but I want to think it's actually less than that. I don't really know for sure. I take breaks. I do other things. But if we take a look outside of this map, well, one thing where it's going to be annoying is our lights. Crap. Oh, never mind. Unlit. There we go. Okay, so here's our map in unlit form. As you can see, I have a lot of overlap on brushes. I have floors that don't line up outside. I have just general disarray everywhere. That's because this is a blocked out map. In a final game, a finished game, you're going to actually want to convert all these brushes into static meshes. And you'll want to make sure that they fit properly together. Maybe see each of these rooms would be maybe a blueprint with a brush setup. So that way, not a brush setup, a mesh setup. So that way you can just drag and drop them around and easily make reusable modular rooms. So once I finished with my basic map, I started iterating on it. All I had was my first floor with a couple rooms. But the point is, you get something working and you go from there. So my next thought was, okay, I have my first floor here. I'm not using lighting at this point in time. If you notice in my materials, I actually have 2 different versions. I have these ones here, which are my base colors that are affected by lighting, which I used in my final project. Then I have my unlit versions, which are these same things except they glow. So I don't have to worry about lighting or any of those effects. So I built my map using the unlit version, and then a nifty feature is you can go in here and you have, for example, this is my master blue. If I select by matching material, I can get everything with the same material, and then I can easily just swap it out for the different versions. So I can go from the unlit to the lit. So about halfway through designing the map, I was thinking to myself, how the hell do I do storefronts? I have store names to come up with. I have graphics to be unique for each one. I have displays I need to set up into each store. I just have so much stuff that needs to go into each one. But around the same time, I had my little character here zooming around the map. And I realized,
bing bong, bing bong.
I
Customers
don't
need
need
assistance
to do
on floor
the fancy
1.
stuff. The whole point of this game was to basically find people and kill them.
Bing bong.
Give good customer
bing
service.
bong. Customers
And I found
need
that
assistance
with
on
that being the
floor
focus,
2.
I didn't need to adjust my map.
Bing.
And if I made a few artistic choices, like for example, I made my ramps blue, where my base was this orange. I threw in some lighting. So actually, when you're down here on the bottom and you run your character, you'll notice it's actually affected by the global lighting. So your character gets a little bit of lighting as it goes in and out of shadows.
Bing bong.
You cast a shadow.
Customers need assistance.
I made these lights here, which basically emit light and give off static lighting, but it gives it a little bit of a little bit of an effect. I put a little bit of decoration on the ceiling to give some more lights. I decided to go with an artistic choice and leave the game like this. Leave it with this type of material. Because this is a stylistic, artistic choice, and I said, I don't have the time to do it any other way. Here we go. So that was it. So once that decision was made, a lot of more time was able to be spent on other things. So what would be next? Well, I got a character. I've got a basic map I could run around. And I got nothing I can do now.
Bing bong.
I got no one to shoot.
Bing
I got no one to
bong.
destroy.
Customers
I need to
assist.
put someone into the game. So I already had my mesh I could put into the game right here. But he doesn't do anything. So the next thing to do was to hook up animations and try to get him doing something. I needed a target, and I wanted a moving target. I thought it would be more fun. So the idea was pretty simple. I have exits in the map, and at this point of time, I had 2 exits. One at the bottom, one on each side at the bottom. But when this map was being created, I had none of this extra stuff. It didn't look like this. It was a giant open orange area. I'm thinking maybe for the next jam, if you guys like this, as I start iterating, maybe as each major phase, blockout phase and things, I'll start saving those temporary maps. I won't include them in the final build for the game itself, but I'll include them in the source. And that way we can go over the iterations. So basically the goal was, I need people to do something, and right now I'm just going to have them flee. So let's make ourselves a blueprint, which I'm going to call the exit. And basically, that is where our players are going to flock to. So the first thing I did, and let me go and pull this up, is I made a nav mesh. And I just dropped a nav mesh onto my floor, so I had a place for my people to go to. So that's what our green little nav mesh is here for. The next thing is, where are they going to go? In my last game, I used some basic AI, and I used the Unreal documentation to follow it. And basically, it was a flocking AI where they find the person, and then they go to the person. So once the game would start, they would find you as the player, and they would all try to attack you. I wanted the opposite. But the nice thing is it's technically not the opposite. All I'm doing is changing where they're going to. Instead of finding the player, they're finding my nice little blueprint that I called exit. So this right here is my blueprint exit, which is full of awesome code. Well, actually, it's full of nothing. Blueprint exit is a blank actor blueprint, which I'm simply using as a point of reference. That's it. All of the code actually is going to be inside of our person in the AI controller. So For an AI, you need a few things. You need the AI controller, you need a blackboard, you need a behavior tree, you need your character itself, you need some tasks, things for them to do. Now, at this point in time, I started to realize I'd made my first mistake. My male character, my first character I brought in here, wherever he's at, right now, if you look up here, he is parent class enemy character. When I originally created this, because I wasn't thinking ahead, I figured, you know what? I'm just going to make as many mistakes as possible, correct them, and it'll be great for the video. I made this character as a character. I did not make a parent class. Now, the difficulty comes in when you're doing things that are generic. If you don't have a generic parent, like my enemy character here, then you'd have to have a specific blackboard, behavior tree, enemy controller, specific animations for each and every type, because I didn't do a generic one. So about halfway through the process, I had to redo things and make a generic enemy parent. So that's something to keep in mind. It'll take a few extra minutes. One thing you may have noticed here, by the way, which I don't know if anyone did, but you'll notice why some of these problems came to light. When I do my games normally, or I'm working for someone else, one of the first things you work on is a design document. Something that details the game, the different systems you may need to put in place. And you spend a decent amount of time going over everything you should in order to make the game. I said, screw it this time. I just started throwing stuff together and see what would happen. And I had a lot of refactoring I had to do because of that, like converting my specific character into a generic character. So, at this point in time, I put together artificial intelligence. In order to do that, you need a controller, which is just like our player controller, except it's an AI controller. The parent is AI controller, and all this basically does is tell the pawn that it's going to control which blackboard it should use and which behavior tree it should use in order to determine what it's supposed to do. I don't think I've done any AI videos yet, and if this is the future and I have, go ahead and search, and I probably will in the future. I plan on doing it. So this will be a quick little overview. We have our blackboard, and we have our behavior tree. Now, I am very serious here. Let's see if we can find it, as a matter of fact. Let's see. Unreal Engine 4 AI. Let's see if this is it. Yep, here we go. So this right here, this video and these 15 steps, behavior tree quick start guide. I literally followed this step by step in my last game. And it teaches you all the basics of how to create an AI controller, behavior trees, tasks, services, decorators. I didn't understand 70% of this. I'm not going to lie. I just literally followed the code to get an AI working because it was what I needed for my last game. I'm going to be doing videos explaining these things in more detail to make them a little clearer, hopefully. But for now, all I did was literally, if you want to call it cheating, I cheated. I copied the examples and made it work. So for my purpose, since I didn't need to check a bunch of stuff like fleeing and running around and targeting, all I'm doing is, again, really crappy code, but we'll cover it. What we do here is we're basically, let's cover how this works. A blackboard is basically variables. That's it. Honestly, that's it. It is a bunch of variables that is used in your behavior tree. That's all it's going to be used for. So our behavior tree is basically, from top to bottom, what is our artificial intelligence going to do? It's going to start here. It's going to go here. It's going to do something. And if this something is good to go, it's going to go here. If this something is good to go, it's going to go here. And it's going to keep repeating based on what you tell it to do. So in my case, right here, basically I'm telling it to check for fleeing service every 0.4 to 0.6 seconds. It's this little variable range here. It's going to run this little bit of code right here. basically every half a second. Based on that code, it's going to check this. And it's going to see, this is a Boolean basically. In here, did I tell it to flee? If I told it to flee, then it's going to go ahead and run this part right here. This part right here is basically telling it to move to an exit. And then if it successfully escapes, it escapes. If it gets stuck, it tries to find a new exit. That's it. It may look weird, it may seem weird, but that's basically all it's going to do. So it's going to be like half a second in, hey, do we want to flee? If we don't, it's just going to sit here and check again every half a second. If at one point in time it's saying, yes, we should flee, it's going to go ahead and go, okay, let's flee. And all the flee is going to do is run to the exit. If at any point it says it can't flee anymore because it gets stuck, it goes all the way back to the beginning and tries to flee again. That's it. So I will kind of go over the code here. I'm not going to go over it in detail. This will be in another set of videos for AI. But basically, every tick, you're checking to see, is this a good to go character? Does it exist? You're getting one of our exit points. You're finding a random exit point. You are saying, hey, here is your random exit point. Remember how I said these are just variables? Well, one of them is the target and the target location. And all I'm doing here is setting those two values. I'm saying, okay, Mr. Artificial Intelligence, here's your target, which is one of our exits. And here's the location of that target. And then I'm saying, hey, go ahead and start fleeing now. That's it. The flee task, once you're fleeing, is pretty simple. Is it valid? Can we flee? Is there an actual person to flee? Is it, artificial good? Then we go, okay, this is really simple. Move there. We use our simple AI move to. We tell it where to move to, the object and the location that we said earlier, who we want to move, which is the pawn we're controlling, and then we tell it to go. If it's successful, we tell our game state we successfully escaped, and it updates the variables appropriately, and then it destroys the escapee. If it fails, we say, crap, we stuck. We go ahead and unset the fleeing variable, which on here is this part right here. If this is unset, it aborts itself, and it goes all the way back to here. So that's it. That's all our artificial intelligence does. Really simple. If it's inside the game, every half a second, it's going to try to find an exit. It's going to immediately run for that exit, and it's going to try to get there and escape successfully. So once that was done, I now actually had a awesome, successful fleeing character. My guy could run away. I couldn't do anything to him yet, but he could successfully run. So at this point in time, we've got a character we can move. We've got a map we can play in. We've got enemies we can put into the map and run to an exit. That's the basics of a game. We're only missing basically one thing: stopping those enemies. So I had to figure that one out. Well, these are pretty simple, but not pretty simple. I'm actually going to go ahead and stop the video here because we're about half an hour. Since the next one is going to cover how I did damage, and I did it kind of poorly, it's going to require a lot of explaining to go over what I did. I'm going to leave that for the next video. So, questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below.